Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. Don't be unrealistic as a man. And this is very important because I'm seeing too many men being unrealistic, almost living in a fantasy. That's unacceptable for a man. That is unacceptable for a man because men have to deal with reality. Being unrealistic and living in a fantasy, dealing with illusions, that's something for women. Let me be very clear about that. That is something for women. The reason why? Well, that's just their nature because despite what people think, men created this world. Men created the order out here. And we have to deal with the real consequences of things. We have to deal with it. If a man has a family, he can't be fantasizing about anything. He has to protect that family. He has to lead that family. He has to provide for that family. He's ultimately responsible for that family. And even if he doesn't have a family, he still got to be responsible for himself. He has to see things out here the way things really are. Yeah, that's cool. He can want things to be a certain way if, you know what I'm saying? If he's willing to make it happen. But otherwise, he has to see things as they are. But it's too many men running around out here in a fantasy, in an illusion. And I'm talking whether it's online or in the real world. I've seen some men like that in the real world. Thankfully, there are realistic men who can keep order out in this joint. And even that's getting tough because a lot of men, I don't know what it is. Well, you know what? Yes, I do. One of the things that's happened over the last 40, 50 years is that many men have suppressed their real masculinity, suppressed it. Maybe for political reasons, maybe they just grew up around a domineering mother or something like that, or they following what certain groups are putting out in the media as to how a man should behave. And that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Because every single man has to be sovereign at the very least, even in his own life. He has to have some measure of control. He has to see things as they are. Like I briefly touched on a man being protective, especially if he has a family. In order for him to properly protect that family or protect his loved ones, or if he's in a relationship, protect that cooperative woman, he has to know what's going on out here for real. He can't be on some fantasy thing. In order to lead, he has to know what's out there. Because to lead doesn't mean bossing someone around. To lead means looking ahead and seeing what's coming and using his intelligence, his logic, and his reasoning to deal with what's going on. Not a fantasy. He got to see the real deal to provide. He has to know how to do that. He has to be a hunter. He has to know how to hunt. In the modern society, that means he needs to know how to make money. So he needs to know what to do. Now, if he's an independent business man, he needs to know realistically how he can make that money. Now, if he wants to work for someone, he still has to be realistic there. And then when he's dealing with women, that's one fourth of all of that I just mentioned. He has to be realistic as to how he really stands with women, what he can do, and even really interacting with women. So he has to be realistic. He has to know what he can do and what he cannot do. And this is a very key thing. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what politics, I don't care. No, this ain't politically correct. A man has to stand up. If at the very least for himself. If at the very least, in order to have some sovereignty in his life. This is very important. This is very important in everything. Yeah, muscles popping out. Yeah, so he has to know. But see, what I'm seeing with a lot of men is they're just out here existing. I mean, first of all, it's too many men out here who don't even have just basic sovereignty, which is over themselves. And then extending that to their, their immediate environment. Too many. That's the first thing any man need to be working on anyway. Now, I know I'm known on this channel for talking about man gets women, but remember, I also talk about overall sovereignty. This is very important. This is very important. It's something that every single man needs to go for, like no matter what. No matter what, there are no excuses. But he has to be realistic. He has to be realistic about what he can do. And see, here's the thing about it. He might be in a position, if he's realistically looking at his skills, what he's able to do, his ability to protect, to lead, to provide, and all of that. Okay, he realistically has to work on it. He realistically has to develop his mindset in order to be that protector. If he's having trouble seeing ahead or thinking through stuff, he got to work through it. He has to get his mind right so he can get things done. These things are very important. It's not something to play around with. And every single man has to do this. And just, hey, look, let me be clear on something. I've said several times, like when we talk about men gets women, I've said several times that, money doesn't turn on a woman sexually. I've never said don't get money, because you have some people that'll say, well, does that mean you got to be broke? No, I ain't say that. I've always said a man need to make money ultimately for himself. How you going to be sovereign in this world? Are you going to find some land and build your own house? Well, shoot, you're going to have to buy the property. Unless you get someplace that's not owned by anybody and you can like take wood, whatever's out in the environment and make some type of structure. But realistically, men need to have money to buy that home or to buy that vehicle or just to live every day. And if you're having trouble with that, well, you need to work on that. Whether it's starting a business or just having that well-paying job, whatever you're going to do. That's the key. That's the key. But in order to do any of these things, and yeah, women in there too, even dealing with women being realistic, a man has to be realistic. He can't be unrealistic. And men can afford to live in a fantasy. Women can do it all day. Because despite what people think's going on out here, they still lean on women. Men. Women still lean on men. Despite many thinking, oh, feminism and gynocracy and all of that, men still run this planet. Men still create the order. So men have to be realistic. And really, being realistic is just being an adult. That's what it means to be a man. You got to take responsibility. And I wanted to share that because I see a lot of fantasy with many males out here. I'm not even going to call them many males out here. Fortunately, there are enough men to keep things from falling apart totally, but we need more men out here. All right? So that's all I have for today. Every single man watching this, keep building. Every single male watching this, get realistic, become a man. So that's it for today. I want y'all to think on what I'm saying, and I'll get back with y'all. Peace and blessings.